welcome to today's episode. I have with me another special guest that you are going to want to tune in to hear all about because she has a very interesting story. But not only is she an influencer, but her whole family are influencers for the kingdom of heaven. So I want to introduce to you Stacey Collins. Hello, Stacey.
Hi, Lisa. I'm just so happy to be here and to get to know you better. We had a chance to talk the other day, and that I loved hearing your heart. So I'm really honored to be here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And I'm honored to be able to get to know you. And it's so neat how, we might meet each other for a brief time or very recent, but we feel so connected. And I feel that way with you, Stacey, that's one of the beauties of life in the kingdom. I call it the kingdom zone where God can just, do something in a short period of time that seems like it should take a long time to do, like years and years. But I wanted to have you on, Stacey, because this show is all about really highlighting women, kingdom women who really have a heart to glorify God, glorify Jesus in all that they do, and also to be a voice of influence wherever God has them. And you're one of those people that from the short time that I've known you, that you just put yourself out there, you are obedient, and you just allow God to do what he wants to do. But I know that there's a lot of backstory to where you are today, and I would love it for you to share with our listeners a little bit about your story. Particularly, you spent, I think, 10 years in Hollywood. Is that right? Or
Yeah,
more?
across 10 years. We're Canadian like you, right?
You're Canadian. Yes.
Albertan. Yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, we have that in common. Yeah, we spent across 10 years,
Okay.
majority of, and especially the last 6 years, intensive in Hollywood.
Okay. So Stacy is a coach. She's an author. Her and her husband are executive producers. And she could tell us a little more about what that's entailed. But she's been they have been, I should say, not just she, but they have been intricately connected to the entertainment industry. So that's kind of the mountain that God has had you in for a number of years. So how did that happen for you and your family? How did you end up going to Hollywood?
It's funny because when I was a little girl, I lived in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and now it's been called Hollywood. It's funny because they're doing movies there. But I saw we didn't have a television at home, but I saw the Hollywood sign at my grandma's on the TV. We weren't allowed in that room. It was like plastic all over the couches, and
Oh, yeah.
so I saw the Hollywood sign, and I actually thought I lived in Hollywood, like as a little 4-year old. So I never forgot that vision. But I grew up in a family, we ended up having 10 kids, and I'm the oldest girl. So one older, 8 younger. So there was no, those dreams of going to Hollywood. I was a singer, played the piano. I acted in drama, and I was the lead in plays. And so that was a dream in me that resonated from a very small child. But it was like God already prophetically showed me the Hollywood sign
Hmm.
as a little girl who it seemed impossible. It seemed like I would never go there. Right. And to look at that and to think of how God led us. Now, my husband, he did modeling and acting in other ways, and he was a businessman. And so we got married. It's a really cool story, but I won't share it on here because it's too long. But how my husband and I, how God put us together, and how they pray. His sister prayed for him. That's a whole story in itself. But we've been married 28 years, and within our first year, 3 weeks, our anniversary, we had a 3-week-old baby on the table in the seat, at the restaurant. And God had given prophetic words about our daughter, our firstborn,
Hmm.
when she was in my womb, that she would
Right.
write beautiful words and sounds, and she would be a warrior for God in worship. And
Hmm.
so you listen to all that, when your kids are little,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I have a heart for music, and my husband is very artistic in his nature, but he's like active in business and sports. So together we had 4 kids. We had 3 kids in 3 years and 4 in 6 years. And I homeschooled. We were that family that everybody talked about. We moved into an acreage. We had, we did network marketing. We homeschooled, and our kids were developing. I had them in 37 activities a week altogether. Yeah, called road school. So there was drama, and there was hockey, and there was, singing and piano lessons. It was massive. And we also did like language, like English lessons and all that. So our daughter, Kirsten, was 11, and she sang so mature that it seemed like it offended people in the in the competitions, because you have all the other 11-year-olds, and it was not the same maturity. And it became hard. And she was in this competition, and she just was so mature that they didn't know what to do. Like, it just wasn't the same level. So I heard from God to reach out to people in Hollywood. And one of our friends, David Wood, he just reached out to me a few days ago. I haven't talked to him for years. He was from Hollywood, and he had spoken to us about going there. But, you think it's like, back then, I was like, way, you don't think about that. The internet wasn't a huge thing back then as well. It was just beginning. So in 2008, we went, and I reached out, and I found voice coaches. And some of them were $500 an hour. Crazy. But I wanted to know, does my daughter have a talent that is worth pursuing? Because she'd outgrown in our local area. And that's what most people, when they outgrow their local area, they want to look for other resources. So we found a flight on WestJet for all 6 of us, for like, it was so God. And we just booked this flight and flew to Hollywood.
Wow.
Really. And our friend's wife, Michelle at the time, she introduced us to a pastor. And we were given the opportunity to meet one of the top mogul music guys.
Wow.
Or this pastor. And John and I prayed, and God said, the pastor. And I didn't know that this pastor had a church full of I could list the names. I wouldn't have recognized them, even though they're sitting next to me. Yeah. But in Hollywood, he had this church full of top people in the industry. And he sat with us for 4 hours. We were oblivious to, we just were Canadians sitting there, And he was trying to call up this young man and see if he was available. And that guy happened to be at the ice cream shop across the road in Beverly Hills that he never goes to. And he met with us, and he starts telling us some of the songs he worked on. And I laughed. I actually laughed, because I thought, no, like, you're from Canada. We don't meet people like this. And he was working with the Backstreet Boys. And he said, his name's Brian Kennedy. And he actually said, hey, I'm going to push back them till Monday. And I want Kirsten to come in on Friday, and let's work with her. And so we recorded 5 songs with Brian. But we felt nauseous, because it's overwhelming as parents. And we're very conservative Christian parents. And this is our 14-year-old daughter, and we have a 12-year-old, an 11-year-old, and an 8-year-old, right? So we went to all these studios. Like, it was exciting. He brought out a sound that was beautiful. Like, even one of the songs to this day, they think it's Lady Gaga and Rihanna. Like, it was posted wrong, actually, online. And so there's millions and millions, tens of millions of views on these songs. The song that Kirsten, someone took it off my MySpace. Back then, MySpace was the thing. Someone stole it off MySpace, uploaded on YouTube as Lady Gaga and Rihanna, and it's everywhere. Like, it's called Ain't Ready or something. Like, and there was that kind of journey that we weren't ready for. And we didn't understand what Hollywood is all about. So you have the excitement, and then you have truth of a journey. And so there's both. It's kind of the height of both, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
that
that's
was
how we
your
got to
that
Hollywood.
was how you first and then did you stay or did you go back to Canada or that you like
We kept delaying our flight home. Like every time we would go, we'd push it back because, oh, one more studio, one more, and it just became, that was in 2008. And we kept coming back and forth. And we were here, but we'd go over there with Kirsten, not our whole family all the time. And so that was hard. And then our son, Christian, he started to go on YouTube unbeknownst to us. He was building this huge
yeah.
following. Yeah. The shy son that, you didn't expect. And I was like, who is that kid? You see him lip syncing, and all these fun things were happening with that. And it got out at his school that he was public on YouTube because he was under Weekly Chris rather than Christian Collins because he wanted to protect himself. And he had all these fans sending him gifts from all over the world, but we didn't know. We didn't have a clue. We were just like, well, that's nice, Christian, And we're like working on the music with Kirsten, and then all of a sudden he says to my husband, oh, Oprah, they reached out to me and wanted me to be on the show, right? And we were like, oh, but he missed it. But I found the email, and I found 6,000 other emails that I had to go through. And there were all these opportunities, people reaching out. We didn't know this world. We didn't
Wow.
understand the social media. It was just beginning. That was back in 2012, I believe. So things started to really snowball, like just move fast. And then when he got on Vine, he went to 1 million in a month, and
Wow.
that changed our whole life. So our family picked up and went to Hollywood, and it just kept propelling. And his brother went to 1 million, and within 5 months, and they were working together, and then all these kids were coming together. The social media
Yeah.
frenzy, right?
Yeah.
And you couldn't even sit down in a public place privately. If any teenage girl was there from a certain age, like they would be at our table. Like there would be
Mm.
mobs anywhere you would go. So it was like a weird. We weren't ready for that, and we were still
Mhm.
helping our daughter get her music. Like we're still trying to do the traditional, and
Yes.
it's kind of sad because we told Kirsten, you can't do you're professional. You can't do social media. Lord forgive us. And so I got her YouTube to like 5,000 in 5 years, and her brother's at 1 million. You know what I mean? Like she's worked really hard and has grown up on her channels. 1 million on
Yeah.
some, and just really proud of each one of them. But Lisa, the journey that was hard is walking through as a family because I homeschooled for so many years,
Mhm.
staying together as a family in Hollywood and
Mhm.
supporting the the highs and lows for each other,
Mhm. Mhm.
because you would have one kid have this opportunity, and we'd go in as a whole family to meetings, and people would target
Yeah.
one of the kids as their highlight, and the other kids would be sitting there. So we learned how to approach interviews and stuff. We say everybody has a voice,
Mhm.
and then people would actually get to know the whole family. So it was
Wow.
kind of we were one of the only families at the time that were large on social media. There was a very small group of influencers back then.
Hmm.
Like everybody knew each other. Now it's now it's like the ocean,
Yeah, exactly. Wow, wow. So there was a lot of navigating through, just kinda thrown in the deep end in
Yeah,
some way, just kind of
yeah,
allowing the Lord it's so good that even from the beginning, you were able to recognize that as a family and just or as parents and be able to just protect your kids
yeah.
as much as you can, but also to help them navigate through that. I'm sure that that wasn't easy,
No,
but, the pressure and the culture that's
yeah,
there was,
yeah. Because they were teenagers, and
yeah.
you get these brand deals, that you can earn so much money, and that was one of the hardest things that I couldn't relate with anyone else. Is when when your kids are teenagers, they need to come to you to get money. Well, it
Mhm,
was the
mhm.
opposite. in our family, because they were making so much money. They could buy a car with cash, like a $60,000
Yeah.
vehicle with cash, and that's not how we lived
Mhm.
before. So it was a big transition. I did find some strong Christian moms that
Mhm.
are my prayer partners to this day,
Mm.
and they understood how how we need to pray differently. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of different factors
Yeah.
in walking in Hollywood. And now, when we left 2 years ago, in February, I guess March, I came back to Canada, and I had to leave all four of my kids there.
Oh.
My youngest was 18, turning 19, and that was hard.
Yeah.
But they had built friendships, opportunities, relationships there. But my youngest daughter ended up coming back home and going to YWAM. And
Ah.
now she's studying the Bible like 9 months. She's graduating on Thursday from 9 months of intense Bible study. So who knew that that would happen?
Mhm.
My
Yeah.
daughter Kirsten's now in Texas, and she's pursuing her music, and she's got incredible. There's so many things happening all the time, but you forget. That's one thing that I want to say to people too is you get this high and you get this experience, but then
Mhm.
you get low because you want to stay on this. There's an adrenaline that comes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like really being grounded in who you are. And even
Mhm.
myself as a strong Christian woman, I felt like a frog in a pot of water because like when someone's dangling $40,000, well, you know, it's not a big deal if you do this thing,
Right.
if it's spiritually off, or like
Yeah.
the if you're promoting a voodoo doll, like you know what I mean, like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But you actually get to that place.
Yeah.
And I would encourage people to pray for Hollywood, and
Mhm.
there is a Hollywood prayer network that pray for actors and pray
Mhm.
for singers, and I actually talked to the lady who runs it. You need to pray for the influencers
Mhm.
because when you're put out into the spotlight, you have everything come at you.
Mhm.
And I watched my kids get attacked physically, mentally, myself. And
Mhm.
if you have any open doors, and you don't have people understand how to pray for you, and they're
Mhm.
judging you, they're not helping. They're
Yeah.
actually speaking against you and
Yeah.
not holding you up, because what's a greater platform than to have social media influence or to have media influence?
Mhm.
You touch global. So if you're not carrying the message of God,
Yeah.
if you're not carrying the message of life, then you could bring the wrong messages because of not being strong or not having that support around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that there was a lot of discussions and conversations and, because of the age of your children, but also because of
Yeah.
it sounded like things happened quickly and coming into that place of understanding the nuances of compromise or the nuances of the pressures
Yeah.
that you could feel in the
Yeah.
temptations.
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually, I've never really talked about this very often at this stage. All my kids are still huge social media influencers and still do great things. I think that it became so much of our focus that we lost ourselves, my husband and
Mhm.
I. And now we're coming back to who has God called us to be and what is
Mhm.
our voice, because that will only enhance for the next generation.
Yeah.
There's almost a block that comes. You saw this even with Justin Bieber and his mom.
Yeah.
Like, she prayed and got healing in her own life. And now you
Yeah.
see the breakthrough.
Yeah.
Like, you see, as she walked through and prayed and, released, Justin got released too. So there's
Yeah.
something about that healing of generational, that is important for parents to remember. no matter what your kid does, like
Mhm.
there's many kids out there who want to be a YouTube star or want to be TikTok. Like, we've done all those platforms, like on 8
Mhm.
platforms. My son was huge on all those. And we've experienced when they change the algorithms and when you lose, you know, the chance to be seen. Many people went through this
Yeah.
that were top influencers, and they had some people just kept going and changed it up. But if you were exhausted, you just couldn't do it. You're it's a fighting battle.
Yeah.
So you have to always come back to identity. Like,
Mhm.
who am I? Who did God create me to be? And that's what I love with my kids. Like, I pray with all of them. Even this morning, my daughter called to be prayed for. Like, I sent his call to chat and to talk
Mm.
about how he was thinking about, when he was born, and, you know,
Wow.
like just spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Well, it sounds like you have, both you and your husband have cultivated that kind of openness and relationship where they would. And so that's beautiful. And that's such a testimony because of being in that world where
Yeah,
there is a lot of pressure, where there's a lot of I mean, it's just different kind and probably the intensity is different than
yeah,
say in another
got it.
sector of society, right? It's just a and so being able to understand it is one thing and then being able to be proactive and kind of set the boundaries or the guidelines and but also your kids, not just because you're saying it, but then when they come of age, actually
Yeah,
following that as well.
yeah. Well, as adults, it was hard because instead of really praying and walking through and having the right support, I would say I don't like that person. I could feel,
Mhm.
the enemy coming into our camp. And I'd be
Yeah.
like, how did you get in here? I would literally say that. I'd go in my room and go, how did they get in here?
Yeah.
How did they get into my family?
Yeah.
And it was the trusting of man rather than trusting God and
Mm.
hearing God. You start to listen because oh, let's go. We're gonna go over to like Chris Brown's mansion and have a
Right.
party. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're not thinking, well, what's the party going to be like?
Right.
Who's
Yeah.
who's going to be there? What are people going to be doing?
Yeah.
Am I going to approve of what's happening here?
Yeah.
So there were a lot of things that um, I was naive to,
Mhm.
and our children were naive to. But I
Mhm.
have to say that God used everything that we've been through. I just
Mm.
told my son today. I was able to pray with someone yesterday, a mom yesterday, and help her where I knew other people were like, oh, yeah, I understand. I'm like, no, they don't understand. Because you have to go through that place to truly understand. God can use us in any way, shape, or form,
Yeah.
but the journey was high and the journey was low
Yeah.
in Hollywood. And I think that's for every person there. Anyone I've talked to that lives
Yeah,
there.
because it's so based on I mean, there's the whole thing is based on performance of constant
Yeah, work.
production,
Mm,
and I'm sure at the pressure of to look and be a
yeah,
certain way and to maintain a certain status in terms of your
yeah,
popularity, and so there's all kinds of pressures externally to do something to appease or to please
yeah,
people who are decision makers or just the general public. So
yeah,
emotionally and psychologically, spiritually, that can really bring on a can really destroy a person if they don't
yeah,
have a
yeah,
sense of their identity and
yeah,
we've seen that like we've seen that over and over. It's happened.
yeah. Yeah, and what I want to say about that is we just look and we judge. But I've met some of those people, walked alongside them. My kids have played with them when they were teenagers.
Mhm.
They went over to the Universal City Walk. That's where they all hung out. And I've even prayed with families where their kids, before they were famous, and we'd have prayer groups. And I saw
Yeah.
like, their parents and their hearts, and they all blew up. Like from this
Yeah.
one prayer group, every family that we prayed over and blessed, they actually blew up in the media, and you were like, you never expected that from that kid. You know what I mean? Like you just, but when we judge, when we look at the magazines and the newspapers, we don't really know.
Mhm.
And they're people just like us. Like we didn't even, hit what some of those people have to deal with. We just tasted. in the social media world and in the music world, um, but really to have support because everybody goes to Hollywood thinking they're going to be a light, right? You just think I'm gonna go to Hollywood. Well, the problem is that there have been people for centuries, like not centuries, but decades before you, praying. They use Zusa, and revival,
Yeah.
but it's the coming together in any community. That's what I find even in being in Canada here. Like we were talking the other day, Lisa, about,
Yeah.
you know, wow, we're both Canadian. What does God want us to do? Like, is there
Yeah.
something that we could step into here? And I feel that about Hollywood. If people would be able to trust, but it's hard to trust.
Mhm.
Like we had managers that stole from like we just stopped having managers. And even when we were the managers, because we're parents, people would come in and disrespect us and start texting our kids. And it's hard because they're giving these opportunities, but their
Yeah.
intention is wrong.
Right.
And anyone that does not honor family
Yeah.
or parents, you know they're not trustworthy
Mhm.
because you
Yeah,
never
that's
come between that. Yeah.
yeah, and that's so that's great that I love that you say that because it's having that clarity of values and kind of like non-negotiables in some way as a person, but as a family, and to
Yeah.
have that as a plumb line as to okay, I mean, obviously we have the Spirit of God, the Word of God, and that's our plumb line for truth, but at the same time, when you have places that are looking at someone's integrity or whether or not that is someone that would be aligned to the values that you demonstrate, there has to be some markers or some places that you say, "Ah, you know what?
Yeah.
If they cross this line, how many other lines will they cross?"
Yeah. And we saw that a lot. And
Mhm,
also like there were so many talented people. And something that I was sharing with a friend the other day is it was almost like they got power from darkness. And so
mhm.
all of a sudden people could do things they never could do before. Like almost shape shifting. Like they could actually, like you could do all those things. Like just whatever the need was,
Wow.
they actually would be able to do it. So that was shocking to me. I would see that a lot. But
Hmm.
there were really amazing people as well.
Yeah.
And we did see, my son's still living in Hollywood. Like he's an influencer house, and my other son is traveling and taking a break for the last like 8 months. And I already told you about the girls.
Yeah.
So, but there were moments like we have birthday party blessings,
Mhm.
and we do it on Zoom right now, but we all just bless the person. It's
Mhm.
beautiful, and we've been doing it for years and years. We got it from Arthur Burke, and we just continued on.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, from his, family foundation weekends, and you put someone in a circle and you bless them.
Yeah.
And we saw people come to Jesus
Mm,
just from our birthday parties.
cool.
And they couldn't wait to be in the chair. They're like, what's my birthday? Are you going to celebrate my birthday and do a blessing for me? And there's moments like that. There's moments that I was able to share Jesus with somebody who had turned away from God because of their uncle in church, and a leader in the industry, and I was able to share God's love with them
Mhm.
and pray with people. And so there were a lot of beautiful things like that too.
Yeah, and those are the sweet moments, and the other part of that is you don't know all of the other things that you didn't see that are gonna have a ripple effect because
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
relationships and the
yeah,
impact that you've had. I mean, I would love to go and talk more about some of the other experiences, but we'll have to do that another time.
yeah,
But I believe that there is definitely there's as we know from a spiritual point of view, there are principalities and powers, and there's forces that gain authority in places because of decisions they're making, and so being mindful of that and navigating through that is so important as a Christian that we so I love your story because if n- it gives hope to people who are in situations like that, and it also gives them a framework to say, okay, if you are in this kind of a situation in the entertainment industry, or could be in other areas of society, business, high levels of corporation, there's other pressures that still come in different forms. But what I hear you saying is that being able to come back to who you are, who God is and the values that you have, and really staying true to that, obviously communication with one another, but
Yeah.
really fiercely,
Yeah.
fiercely guarding those things.
And also, we're actually we had it on hold because of life story. That's for a whole other day. But we have a company called Jehovah Jireh Productions, and we're getting ready to launch that. But that will be to help young people, that Christian young people have talent and families, to transition and to walk through, and to help, you know, maneuver and connect for entertainment industry
For
without having
entertainment, for
yeah
entertainment?
without having to deal with the hard way, right? To
Ah,
Yeah,
cool.
some mentoring, and so that's what um, we started to. I put JehovahJirehProduction.com up, but it's not. It just talks a little bit about our kids and about
Yeah.
the opportunity to like consult. But I haven't really focused in on that because we were building behind the scenes foundation. But we're
Mhm.
working on some films, and just really films that will make an impact. Stories. We have some script writers that are working with us and have a passion project. So I'm excited about all that too.
Yeah.
But we're in Canada and going to do that. But also, we want to help kids who do want to connect in Hollywood. We have friends and
Mhm.
connections of people that do film and music, and yeah,
That's so cool. So, the athletic world and the entertainment world often mix a lot. I don't know if you saw that in Hollywood, but
yeah.
my son he's a high level hockey player looking
Wow.
at sites at NHL, and so similar prayers going towards him as well,
Yeah,
because I know that there's pressures in that world as well,
yeah,
in the athletic.
there is totally same. Anything that it's like you become like God,
Mhm.
and you have to deal with that in your head that you are not God.
Mhm.
And Satan loves to play with that.
Yeah.
And there's so many people in Hollywood that have had Satan come visit them and actually speak right to them because it's that bold. But I've seen Christian young people rise up and turn their life around, but they have to get off the land.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll lift up your son in prayer too, because anything that rises you up for people adore you and idolize you,
Yeah.
you have to struggle through to go back to it's God.
Yeah.
It's from God. God gifted me in this, and that's something that our kids are all transitioned through.
Mhm.
But there were moments it was really hard, like
Yeah.
that ego comes in, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know it's kind of like hello, like
Yeah, and you have to
nervous.
recognize it,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah.
remember, and I don't know who said it, but it stuck with me. It stuck with me for years. Someone said in a conversation sometime, and they said, if there's a price tag on your life, if there's a price that the enemy can pay you, he will offer it to you. Like if
Yeah.
there's something that is a price tag and say of compromise, I'm not going to do for this, but for example, if it's to get the right relationship or to get the right money or to get the right status or fame, whatever it is that
Yeah.
is like the price tag, he will come along and offer it to you.
Mm.
And, but when there is no price tag, because we've been bought by the blood of Jesus, that there's no one else can buy us because our life is not our own, then it becomes a different story. And I think that's the key is being able to have that place of surrender, but identity, but recognizing where those vulnerabilities are, like you said,
Yes. Yeah.
and say,
And seeing that in
okay,
your child too, as a mom, like you
yes,
know, like, and really bringing them back to without judgment. I mean, I
yeah,
didn't do it right many times. There's a lot of fear in me, you know, but I'm thankful, and I think we'll be back in Hollywood, but in a different way. And we want to help others understand about media without even having to go to Hollywood. Nowadays,
Yeah,
I mean, you have the whole world. Isn't it incredible?
totally.
Like you look at you doing your TV show, like right here, it's like you have it all available. You just have to step up and do it. And so I encourage, young old, what does that call you to do? Like,
Yeah.
do it. I'm starting to step into my
Yeah,
dreams.
let's talk a bit about that. Well, before
I've,
we get there, let's talk a bit about the film that you were a part of that came to Canada a few years ago that was very controversial, and what your role was in that, the movie Unplanned.
so funny. My friend Sheila, she's a co-producer on it, but she started out casting, and we were prayer partners, and she put me in the associate casting, so I have a credit in the movie. But I had to come back to Canada, and they were wanting to bring the movie into Canada, and
Mm,
so I was a liaison for the churches and
yeah.
to reach out to all the Christians and that I have a lot of connections. I didn't realize I know a lot of people. I didn't realize how many people I'm just friendly. So she'd like, oh, we want to connect. Oh, I know them. You know what I mean? It was so funny
Yeah.
because so then they hired me, and it was kind of interesting because whoa, all of a sudden I'm like standing up on a platform against killing babies, and people don't all believe that they're killing babies. And so it was kind of like,
Mhm.
and I'm on interviews about this, and I thought, wow, God, I wasn't ready for this, but it actually changed my life. I got
Mm,
to travel all across Canada and
wow.
show to leaders. And every time I'd watch the film and then stand up in front of the room, it was just silent.
Mhm.
And I had women come to me that had had abortions 50 years. And I was
Wow.
50. And this one lady, she was just crying. And I looked at her, I said, "You know how old I am?" And she said, "No." I said, "I'm 50." I said, "Hello, Mama." And she just started weeping, and I held her in my arms. And I would sing "Oh Canada" at every one of these things. And I saw
Wow.
story after story. Even one lady couldn't hear. No, she couldn't speak English at all. And she said from watching the film, she had been at her sister's abortion years, and people were repenting and getting healed, getting loved. It was, I can't even tell you. It,
Wow.
it I'd have 300 people in a room, story after story after story, and they finally could share. And 75% of women are in the church, and it's no one talks about it. So that's another part of Hollywood, is at least you knew what people did in Hollywood,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
It's very
Mhm.
open. I'm a
Yeah.
Christian, but they would be living there, but in Canada, it was all hidden.
Yeah.
So shame. And I was exposing, I was a part of exposing shame. And I didn't really know what I felt about that, but it actually empowered me.
Wow.
Something got awakened inside me. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That is so powerful. And the work that God is doing through that
Yeah.
movie is incredible. Thank you for your part in doing
Yeah.
that,
Thank
just
you.
as a pioneer, really pioneering, breaking in as partnering with the producers and everything. So that is so cool. So now let's switch gears here because
So many
you and
different
I,
stories.
yeah, we could be here all day, as we know. But you and I met through another group that we're part of a group. You're part of the mastermind as well? Yeah.
I no, no,
No, okay, we're part of a group. So we're part of a group of Christian kingdom entrepreneurs doing
no.
challenges. And then you start your own
They told
Facebook
me
group and
nobody told me
challenge
about it.
show.
Well, I wanted people to find challenges because they actually were missing them and they didn't know what they were. And it just blew up. Like
It's
I was just trying
brilliant.
to tell my friends about it. And now it's like we just hit 1,000 this week and I was so excited.
Ah,
Yeah.
you know what? That's such an example of just wanting to serve a community and facilitate and use what you could do, your gifts.
Yeah.
And, whether the Lord spoke that specifically or not, I don't
Mm.
know, but
Yeah, he
you just,
did. Yeah.
yeah, and your heart was to serve, and now it's like, whoa, it's just, and the
Yeah.
blessings that have come back, I'm sure, are enormous in terms of connections.
Yeah.
So you've also, I want to, people want to get in touch with you if they want to know more about, because you've written a book. It's
Yeah,
published
it's going to be released this summer. Just
this
waiting for
summer.
my last illustration, but it's very important because the story is so profound and it's based around a true story. And I, she's really praying about the vision of these last illustrations. She just sent me an idea the last 2 days, and I think it's like really, it's going the right
Yeah.
way. I'm so excited because I want it to be Holy Spirit led, because the story is going to touch about loss, and it's going to touch
Mhm.
about um, you know a baby and adoption. It's going to talk about a lot of these things, and I want it to be right. So you can't just
Yeah.
rush a book, and
Mm.
the process, actually the time it's taken, has actually brought healing for me, and healing even for the illustrator to be open to the story, and
Wow.
even the illustrations are actually making the story bigger, like just because there's
Come
more
alive.
pictures, and I'm seeing more.
Wow.
Something that we did in the story is we kept one scene but changed the dynamics in the scene. I, I never would have thought of doing that, but it's the nursery, every scene of transition. It's really cool.
Wow.
So I can't
Wow.
wait to show you, but it's not ready yet.
Yeah,
It's
so
called
when
Boy
it when
Kiss
it's when it
Red.
comes out, we'll have to have you back
Yeah,
on again so we
yeah,
know where to get it, but I'm excited to see it
thank
in
you.
print and to see that development of that for you. But Stacy, where can get people get in touch with you if they wanted to connect with you?
I think just emailing me at, like, you can find me on Facebook, but I'm Stacy Collins 1122. But my email is Collins Stacy, so two S's there for the
Yeah.
Collins Stacy1 at gmail.com. And yeah, like, if just reach out to me. But it doesn't even have to be about Hollywood. I have a heart for ministering with women, and that is a really core thing about me. I have a
Mm,
lot of diversity, and I feel like God has put that on our family, for business. And I mean, there's so much story that I don't usually talk about the Hollywood story, so it's kind of fun to come on, Lisa, and just share about that journey.
yeah.
There's been so many other things too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, there is, and thank you for sharing because, I think it's an important story for people to know because like you said, a lot of times there's this image of Hollywood, and even from a Christian perspective, is the image of Hollywood. But you brought it together. Like, yes, there is this dark side and there's things like that, but there's also very good, and there's also things that really were beneficial but blessing, but also the fact that your children,
yeah,
that how it helped, how God shaped them through that as well into who they are,
yeah,
and we are called to be influencers. So
yeah,
there are going to be, and this is the thing, is that we can't hide from those pressures no matter, and I believe that if God wants us to be an influencer, we're going to have pressures, and
yeah,
it's part of our growth and character development. But as a family, to be able to really help people to see that, this is possible. It doesn't have to be this way. And obviously there's different factors, but
yeah,
what I heard you say was community was really important
yeah.
in
And
terms
family,
of
like,
family.
to have support of other families, and to have people tell you the truth
Mm,
when you're getting off track. A lady thanked me yesterday for being straight up with her.
that's so
Saves a
good.
lot of time. Like,
Yeah.
I'm learning. I used to be like, dance around it, but we don't have time to waste.
No.
Like, there's been too much loss, and too much mess up. We have to be straightforward. What do we believe? What do we stand for? That's why God brought us back to Canada, so we could get realigned and stand up in our country for what God has called us to. And so wherever you are, like, you could be
Yeah.
in Canada, North America, and other parts of the world, like, what is God calling you to? I almost lost sight from trying to live my children's dreams.
Mm,
And I got sick and was on bed rest for 7 weeks. Like I literally could hardly walk, had to go on a scooter because my heart got broken because I lost sight of my identity. I lost
mm,
sight of, well, first, who is my God and my identity, but he kept whispering to me
mm,
and he pulled me out. And I didn't pull far away, guys. I'm always like about God, but I lost that closeness, that hearing, that intimacy. And
mm.
that's what God's brought me back to is let's let's just be you and me, Stacy. It doesn't matter what your kids do. It doesn't matter what you do. It just be here with me. And as I look at baby Zachary and I hold him, I think that's how God holds me. He's been
Wow.
he's 2 years old. He ministers to me of how God would want to hold me, would love
Wow.
me. And there's something beautiful about just being. I always say, be who you be. So no
Yeah.
matter what we've done, like it comes back to who really is this person you are. And are you going to get up out of bed, like really get up out of bed
Yeah.
and live,
Mhm.
choose life? And I say that coming from a place of being in bed too long and wanting to just put my head down. And
Yeah.
God saying, get up, Stacy, get up. So I say that for you too.
Wow.
Like we can be far high out there or we can be really low, but I pray there's a stirring of embers of, God's
Mhm.
igniting embers in you to live and to not just live, but to release a story, release something, do something, live. Like we don't have any time to waste anymore. Like
It's
things
so
are
true.
happening too fast.
Yeah.
And you want to embrace the fullness of what God has brought you here for. Lisa, I just felt to say that because today, like I've heard so most today, and God is saying, listen, listen, and I will show you, and I will. He says, like, you'll hear a voice from left or right saying, whether you go to left or right, you'll hear a voice behind you saying,
Walk.
this is the way. Walk. God told me go back to Canada. I'm
Mm.
here for a reason.
That's so good. And yes, we need to resist the enemy who wants to keep us down, shut up, shut in, all those things, in terms of physically, spiritually, mentally,
Yes.
that we are meant to shine, but we are
Yeah.
meant to be a voice of influence. And I know that just actually the act of moving, going for a walk, getting your
Yeah.
body going, just starts to trigger things and shakes things off of us. So if you're feeling that way,
Mhm.
just begin to move, begin to dance, or I just dance around my living room. It's like shake it off because we are put on this earth. I love that we do not have time to waste. We're not like going around frantically. We want to be strategic and intentional, but realize that we have opportunities. And I love what you said about speaking and helping each other because that definitely is a lost, I wouldn't say art, but it's a lost practice that we need because we need each other. We need
Yeah.
each other to sharpen each other, to stir one another on, to help each other say, no, remember who you are. That
Yeah.
is not what you don't do that. It's not, in a loving way. And I want that. I want that because I know it's easy for us to get. So thank you for
Yeah.
reiterating that and for being you and being,
Like even
yeah.
meeting you, thank you for that. Even meeting you the other day, I felt the call of God on your life for Canada.
Mm,
And it resonated with something that God put in me. And we couldn't put a finger on it. We couldn't say, but I felt, wow, God placed this woman for such a time as this right now in my life. And it's not even just we'll be friends. It's like there's a purpose, there's a destiny, and we don't know what it is, but I felt it. And then I felt it again today with some man that I interviewed, and I was like, wow. So listening for
yeah.
alignment and timing. Timing is so important. We don't, like you said, strategic. Don't want to rush,
Yeah.
but get ready. Like have purpose. Like this is what I'm here for. It could be
Yeah.
so small, but it moves mountains. Like it could be something that you think, like serving tea to somebody.
Yeah.
You don't know how people have ministered to me just serving me a cup of tea, something
Wow,
small, and
that's
help
so
me be
beautiful.
released into something bigger, you know?
That's so beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Stacy, for taking
Thank
time
you.
and blessing us. What a treat, what a joy.
You
And connect with Stacy on social media, especially if you are interested in this whole area. If your family is moving in the area of the entertainment or areas that you want to glean from them as they launch their programs to really facilitate and help families and people in transitioning into that realm of authority, then definitely connect with her. But we'll have you on again. And thank you so much for sharing your story
thank
and
you.
for just being a voice of influence where you are.
Thank you guys.
Yeah. Bye.